I was Isabella's closest person after we got married. She treated me very well and often showed our happiness in front of the media. I thought she had deep feelings for me. I couldn't help but want to tell the world about her love for me until I heard her talking to her subordinates. I'm involved in both the black and white worlds and have too many enemies. If Nathan is not portrayed as my weak point, how can Ethan be safe? It turns out that all the pain I endured for her now seems like a joke. In that case, whoever wants the thankless task can have it. Boss, aren't you doing something a bit inappropriate? Nathan's still recovering from his injuries. It's just a minor conflict with someone over there. You're rushing over to see him. What you're doing could put you and Nathan in danger. From between the cracks in the wall, I heard Isabella arguing with her brother. I stopped in my tracks. I stood there for a moment, stunned. The villa had many hidden rooms and soundproofed, unless the person speaking is particularly emotional. Not long after, I heard the sound of something being smashed again. What do you mean you only love Ethan? Nathan has shielded you from a lot of things over the years. He has done his best for you. You don't have Nathan in your heart at all. Why don't you let him go? Replace him with that man. You would have suffered long ago. Stop it. If I don't let Nathan be my weakness, how can Ethan be protected? He could be my husband for so many years. I have done him justice. Isabella's voice was clear and low. I leaned against the wall. I found it hard to accept the news I had just heard. For so many years, Isabella has always had someone else in her heart. I was just her substitute. I staggered back to my room. The wound in my abdomen had split open because of her. It was bleeding, but the pain in my body was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. Next to the bed, Isabella had carefully cut an apple for me. Now it seemed like a joke. She was so good to me, that kind of good. It was so obvious and so direct. Everyone envied it. Isabella had many businesses at the border. Whether it was the white or the black market, she could handle it all. In 7 years, I had been kidnapped 3 times because of her. I had blocked a knife for her twice, and I had also blocked a bullet once for her. I could even give up my life. I always thought she loved me dearly, but it was all a lie. You just went out. Isabella's voice suddenly came from behind me. My face was full of tears. Looking at her smiling eyes, I have secretly rejoiced countless times, feeling that I am so lucky to marry such a beautiful woman. But now I feel a piercing chill in her eyes. Nathan, are you afraid of me? Where were you just now? She's very clever. I forced a smile. I woke up and found you weren't here. I was really scared. I'm still not over it. From an ordinary college student to a big shot. It only took him one night. Ever since I was kidnapped for the first time, I've had psychological scars. As long as I can't see Isabella, I'll tremble with fear. She didn't suspect a thing. She just caressed my lips tenderly to comfort me. Her slender fingers gently stroked my cheek. She caressed my ear, then slowly slid down my pale neck, along my collarbone and down. I couldn't help but take a deep breath. That restless hand finally stopped at my waist. The warmth of her palm seemed to ignite every inch of my skin. Tomorrow I'll be out all day. You stay home and behave. She kissed my lips lightly. The breath from her words brushed my ear. I trembled. I clung to her clothes. Isabella, the wound. Her face turned pale. She quickly undressed me. She saw the gauze soaked in blood. Her brows knitted. Nathan, you want to make me die of a broken heart. She changed the gauze herself. She looked really anxious. It wasn't like her to pretend, but I kept thinking about what I had heard. She said she was going to be gone for a day. What was she planning to do that day? I'm going to go see that. The person I protect with my life. That night, Isabella hugged me tightly and slept soundly. But I didn't sleep at all that night, until she left the next day. I didn't open my eyes until I confirmed that she was on the plane, from the bedroom to the study. It's just a few steps. Her small study at home is full of things about me from our first anniversary to my most recent birthday, big and small things. She had them all neatly arranged there. Anyone who saw her would think she was very fond of me, but only I knew. In the secret compartment of the drawer was a diary that didn't belong to me. Isabella told me this after she got drunk. That day she said a lot of sorry to me. At that time, my mind was completely on her. I didn't pay any attention to this. The next day, when she woke up, She forgot to mention it to me. I opened the secret compartment. I gently dusted off the diary. The password on the diary was very complicated. Obviously, the owner cherished this diary very much. I never thought that the knowledge of cryptography I learned in college would actually come in handy here. After unlocking the password, I flipped open the first page. I saw Isabella write 3 words in her strong and powerful handwriting. Ethan. The first 10 pages were filled with her deep feelings for Ethan. Every sentence revealed her caution and passion, and a touch of timidity. I had never seen her like this. She had always been composed with me. I thought she had matured. No longer the fiery emotions of youth. It turned out that she didn't love me. The last page. Her handwriting was sloppy. She wrote, "Ethan was assassinated. He was right. People in our line of work should never have lovers. I'll send him away." The back became a yellowed laminate. The writing on it became less and less. Little boys are so gullible. I thought of Ethan today. The little boy thought I was talking about him. That's okay. Let the misunderstanding stand. That way Ethan will be safe. He can be my husband, even if he is killed. He probably won't mind. I will bear the consequences of my actions. I planned a kidnapping, but everything was under control. He was certainly shocked. For the rest of his life, he will never leave me. I will spend the rest of my life making it up to him. I pressed my eyes hard to keep the tears from falling. It turns out that the person she wanted to be open with was never me. We met, fell in love, got married, and then the happy life that followed from beginning to end. It was all a one-woman show. I closed the diary gently, carefully put it back in place. Then I walked out of the study at that moment. I dared to let the tears fall. I curled up into a ball. The scene of my first abduction came to mind. Back then, Isabella and I were close. I had just left the hospital. I lost consciousness as soon as I got into the car. Those people dragged me along the ground. The extreme cold and cruel torture made me pass out from the pain. By the time Isabella burst in and hugged me, I was already in a daze. At that time, I developed a mental illness. I couldn't leave Isabella for long. My body completely collapsed. I lost my fertility. Isabella comforted me, saying it didn't matter if we didn't have children. In fact, she never intended to have children with me from the beginning. It was also she who severed all my possibilities. The salvation and deep affection I thought I had turned out to be a trap she had carefully laid. The pain in my chest made me gasp for breath. I couldn't control my body's reaction. I collapsed on the bed and kept twitching. In the midst of this extreme pain, I slowly calmed down instead. Every moment I spent with Isabella kept recurring in my mind. Over these past 7 years, I have experienced many life and death moments. Every time, she did her best to save me. She even disregarded her own safety. Her concern for me was genuine. She was worried that after my accident, White Moonlight would be in danger. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. I checked Isabella's transaction records over the years. She had set up a company abroad. It specialized in the jewelry business. Over the years, the gifts she gave me all came from that company. That company did not make money for the outside world. Its annual income was the 100 million Isabella regularly transferred in, and the amount allocated by Smith Group, although it dabbled in a wide range of fields. Every one of her products eventually ended up with that man named Ethan. I found Ethan's Facebook account. He's living a pretty good life at his beach house. In his latest update, he's holding hands with a woman. Under the photo it says, "My one and only." We're worlds apart. I zoomed in on the picture over and over. I saw that the woman was wearing the exact same ruby ring on her ring finger as Ethan. There was also a white mark around her wrist. Isabella once told me, "I don't like wearing rings," so at the wedding everything was there, except the rings. I really thought she didn't like bracelets, so I knitted one myself and put it on her wrist. That day she kissed the bracelet and said it was her lucky charm. She would never take it off. But as soon as she saw Ethan, she took it off. She didn't dislike wearing rings. She just didn't like wearing rings with me. I continued reading. On February 14th, Isabella gave Ethan a sapphire necklace. It was made from a whole sapphire. The best part was carefully carved. On the same day, she also gave me a blue diamond necklace. On July 7th, Isabella bought some high-quality organza and made a whole set of clothes for Ethan. That day, Isabella gave me an organza scarf. I turned the pages of the book, burying my head in the pillow. I couldn't help but laugh silently. My whole body was shaking with laughter in this crazy atmosphere. My pulse seemed to have stopped beating. In Isabella's eyes, I was nothing more than Ethan's accessory, a scapegoat. All the gifts she gave me were carefully prepared for Ethan and incidentally given to me. Our 7 years of relationship came to an end suddenly. I cried all night. Isabella sent me a message at that time. I used to think she cared about me, always wanted to know what I was doing. Now I understand. She was worried that I, her substitute, would leave in that case. How could I let her win? Early the next morning, I hurriedly contacted a lawyer, asking her to help me cancel all my personal information as soon as possible. Isabella didn't come back until midnight. As soon as she entered the door, she leaned against my shoulder and neck anxiously. She asked, "Nathan, have you missed me? Without you, I didn't sleep a wink last night." She has dark circles under her eyes. It really looks like she stayed up all night. In the past, when I saw this, I would have been moved, but now I dare not move at all. She clearly loves someone else, but she pretends to be so affectionate. It makes me feel so fake, so uncomfortable. She smiles and looks down, asks me. Embarrassed, then she pulled me into her arms. She gave a soft grunt. I was like her doll. She never cared if I fell asleep. Tears ran down the corners of my eyes. They were quickly absorbed by the pillow, as if the sadness had never existed. Early the next morning, I had just woken up. I saw Isabella's gloomy face. Thinking about her reputation outside, I shrank back a little in fear. "Your phone is ringing. You logged out of something." I quickly looked down at my phone. It was a message from my lawyer. She told me, "The deregistration is complete. It will take effect in 3 hours." I forced a smile. "It's nothing. It's just an old email address." I was afraid it would be reclaimed if I left it for too long, so I just deregistered it. "Oh," Isabella slowly approached me. She pressed the back of my head with her hand. It was so tight that I could hardly breathe, until I was completely exhausted and fell into her arms. She whispered, "Nathan, don't lie to me and don't betray me." I nodded vigorously. Tears welled in my eyes. Extreme fear made my fingers go cold. Things happened quickly. Soon I would be able to leave her, soon. Isabella would no longer have Nathan by her side. Fortunately, the phone rang in time. Isabella did not come any closer. "What you said, Ethan is back. Who asked him to come? Wait for me. I'll be right there." Isabella's tone was low. She walked away quickly, without even looking at me. I kept reminding myself to keep breathing. Before leaving, I had one more thing to do, even after I had logged out. I didn't want the name Nathan to be associated with Isabella. I calmed down a little. I received a text message from the private investigator. The text message contained a string of numbers. It was Ethan's phone number. I dialed it. I said, "Hello, I'm Isabella's husband. Let's meet." Ethan chose the meeting place. It was in the city's biggest hotel. Behind the screen came a sound of rapid breathing. "Can you please listen to reason? I'm in danger here." I'd seen Isabella's cold and warm sides. I'd seen her in all sorts of guises. But this was the first time I heard her voice of helplessness. She said, "I miss you so much. I'm going to marry someone I don't love soon, and you still won't see me. Have you really fallen for that guy? Don't say that. I'm doing this to keep you safe." Isabella left after her little love scene. She's usually very careful. But this time she didn't notice that there was someone else behind the screen. I can't see my expression, but I guess it's a bitter smile and a sarcastic look. "Isabella left. You look sad. But looking at you like this, I'd like to hear what you have to say." Ethan stepped out from behind the screen. His face was smug. His face was flushed. He was dressed in a tasteful manner. His bearing was outstanding. The skin that was exposed was white and smooth. I looked down at the casual clothes I was wearing. Ever since I had been with Isabella, I had never worn anything nice again, because I don't have the confidence to show off my scars. Constant injuries have made me look a lot thinner than Ethan. He just stood there, looking up and down at me. That kind of look is already ironic enough. "I didn't come here to compete with you for Isabella. I've been by her side for so long. She may also have feelings for me. After all these years with Isabella, I've also learned to bully. You came to see me today. Do you want me to give up on my own initiative? I understand that I am not as good as you. I just want an autograph from her as a souvenir. Walking out of the hotel, I felt my footsteps become lighter. For the past 2 days, I have been trying to get close to Isabella. At first, she was quite cooperative, but then she became a bit impatient. But that's okay. As long as I can achieve my goal, it doesn't matter. 2 days later, Ethan gave me an autograph as promised. The moment I saw the autograph, I felt a great sense of relief. I immediately went to print the divorce agreement. Early the next morning, I was officially removed from the register. I packed up all the gifts Isabella had given me and the diary. I put them in the most prominent place in the villa. It was better to return these things to their original owner. As for all my belongings, before I got on the plane, I burned them all. In the airport lounge, I turned on my phone and sent Ethan a message. Just 2 words, thank you. When the battery was almost dead, Isabella's text suddenly popped up. Baby, I'll be home soon. I've already bought the birthday cake. It's your favorite flavor, strawberry. Sorry, baby. Ethan isn't feeling well. He's here alone. I have to go check on him first. The phone suddenly turned off. The screen went dark. It didn't have time to display the words behind her. But I didn't need to see them to know. She was going to go and keep Ethan company. I broke the SIM card, threw it in the bin, then followed the boarding call and got on the plane. And that's when it happened in the dance hall. Ethan leaned softly against Isabella. His face flushed from the wine. He said, Isabella, I'll be fine. You go back to Nathan. I was being selfish. I couldn't stop thinking about you. That's why I called you. His eyes were full of tears. Isabella's phone was lying on the side. The screen flickered on and off. It wasn't until they came out of the ballroom that she noticed there were dozens of missed calls on the phone. As soon as the phone connected, her brother Olivia's voice sounded panicked and trembling. Boss, a lawyer came to the company to deliver the divorce papers. Nathan found out about you and Ethan. We can't get in touch with Nathan. The phone is not working. We've tried everything else. It's useless. Isabella suddenly gripped the phone tightly. The words divorce papers kept going around in her head. She hadn't expected it. I actually filed for divorce. After all the time we spent together, I loved her so much. I was willing to do anything for her. What did you say? Say it again. Isabella's voice was slow and low. Olivia on the other end of the line couldn't help but feel scared. Her voice was full of tears. Boss, I really can't get in touch with Nathan. A lawyer came by earlier. He left a divorce agreement. There's also a property division agreement attached to the agreement. It says that you gave Ethan the company you started abroad. Will Nathan find out that you used him as a shield? He's been with you for 7 years. He knows a lot. What if he gets angry and tells everyone about this? We'll stop it. Isabella felt waves of irritation. They washed over her like a tide. She told herself, just keep it down. I'll deal with it when I get back. Isabella, what's going on? Ethan tugged at the hem of her shirt. Isabella suppressed her unease. She quickly made a few taps on her phone. Nathan is gone. I'll arrange for someone to take you to the hotel. A hint of joy flashed in Ethan's eyes. He leaned lightly against Isabella. It's just a target. Isabella, I don't feel well. Let them go find it. Stay with me. Okay, don't be a baby. Isabella's face turned cold. She told her subordinate to pull Ethan out of the passenger seat. Ethan couldn't believe her attitude. In the past, as long as he acted a little spoiled, Isabella always gave in without reservation. When I was seriously injured and dying, he left me behind. He went abroad to be with him. It wasn't the first time Isabella had done that. This time I just disappeared. But he didn't care about me. You married him just to protect my safety, Isabella. How can you just ignore me because of him? No matter how hard it is for me. Ethan's voice gradually faded away. Isabella slammed the steering wheel. She slammed the accelerator to the floor. The wind whistled in her ears. She kept telling herself, I'm just a target, someone who'll take the fall for her. She was in such a hurry. She was actually afraid that I would expose her identity. But when she pushed open the villa door, Isabella was standing in the doorway. She was so scared that she didn't dare move. I've tidied up everything at home that's related to me. Only at the entrance were neatly placed along with all the gifts she had given me. And there was the open diary. She picked up the open diary. It was as if she had stopped breathing. "Boss." Olivia stood behind her. She held the documents the lawyer had sent in her hands. She carefully leafed through the pages, from the divorce agreement to the evidence of her infidelity. Every gift she had given Ethan was here, and at the end was proof that I would be leaving the house with nothing. Each page seems to mock the marriage. The gifts she gave Ethan are compared to the gifts she once gave me, which are now in her hands. Mine seem particularly casual. She keeps running her fingers through her hair. Her heart is in such disarray that she can't even describe it. Every little detail of the past, it all comes flooding back to her. Isabella buries her head in her hands. She looks miserable. She usually doesn't show her emotions, but this time even her breathing became rapid. Olivia saw her like this, couldn't help but say, "Boss, I warned you before. This is wrong for Nathan. You will definitely regret it. Nathan is really a very good person. We have long since seen that you have a crush on Nathan. It's just that you have never been willing to admit it yourself. If you had confessed and apologized to Nathan earlier, he would definitely forgive you." "You?" Olivia was startled by Isabella's sudden gaze. How did he know the password? Isabella's voice was a little hoarse. She picked up the diary and waved it in Olivia's face. She wondered in her heart, if I hadn't seen this diary, would I still be here? She even suspected, is someone playing a trick on me? It wasn't until Olivia mentioned the cryptography I studied in college and said that Isabella went with me to pick up my degree that she showed a surprised expression. Then she looked a little sad about me. She never wanted to care, that kind of shallow perfunctory. Only I, who was in love, was foolish enough to believe. "Go find. No matter what the cost, you must get Nathan back." Olivia stood still, without leaving. He thought, Nathan must have been too sad to leave. "Go find him quickly." Isabella raised her voice. Her tone was even more severe. After Olivia left, Isabella was sitting alone in the quiet house. Every breath caused her excruciating pain. The jewelry she had made from scraps had become the only thing that kept her thoughts of me company. Isabella's hand touched the jewelry, and it felt like a knife cutting her. She quickly withdrew her hand. The diary rustled as the wind blew. The pages turned as if someone was reading it carefully. Vaguely, she could see in her mind's eye I was standing in the study. I saw the despair in her face when she saw the diary. She had written in the diary. She had wanted to remind herself not to forget her original intentions, not to indulge in this relationship that she had woven with her own hands. Nathan, how could I not have noticed? In these thousands of days and nights, I have fallen in love with you long ago. Isabella stared at the diary, whispering to herself. Tears fell involuntarily. She buried her face in her hands. Her heart was full of remorse and sadness. She wished she could go back in time, change what Isabella had done, to make it all right. By the time Isabella's people arrived at the airport, the plane had already taken off. Even if they were very capable, they couldn't make the plane stop. As the plane flew higher and higher, I watched them gradually turn into a small black dot. When the plane passed through the clouds, the city where I had lived for so many years disappeared from view. "Isabella, goodbye. We won't see each other again. I've already bought a house by the sea. I plan to open a flower shop there." I've mentioned this to Isabella many times before, but she was always too busy. Now, Isabella doesn't have to explain anymore, and I can finally fulfill my dream. Isabella's people only found the mobile phone I had left behind at the airport. At the villa, Olivia hands Isabella the phone. She says, "Boss, this is all we found." Isabella takes the phone and the broken SIM card. She opens the phone, just in time to read a message. She had sent it to me before I left. "Isabella, where are you? I'm in so much pain. Why can't I get up? Are you back? It hurts so much. Can you buy me a strawberry cake? I'm in so much pain. Something sweet might help. Isabella, I love you so much, if only a little less. I couldn't bear this much pain." Isabella read the message line by line. Her face was expressionless, but tears kept falling. In most of our conversations, she kept saying it hurts, from the beginning to the end. It's always been like this. I've always had old wounds that haven't healed, and new ones to add to the mix. Some of them were set by my enemies. Some of them were set deliberately by her. She made me take the bullet for Ethan. There were even some that she set up to play out the drama, competing for interests. She let her subordinates do the beating. All this danger and pain, she brought it all on me. At the time, she was very pleased with herself. She felt that she had easily tricked me, an innocent and simple young boy with a few sweet words. No matter where Nathan is, I will find him. I have to see him. Isabella's voice trembled a little. She had already made up her mind. Even if I'm in her rival's territory, she doesn't care. Olivia couldn't help but say, "Boss, it's useless to cry. Nathan can't come back. Besides, if you go to see Nathan, what are you going to tell him? Tell him to come back, continue to stand in Ethan's way. Isn't everything you've done for Ethan? Nathan is gone. You can just marry Ethan." Isabella slowly shook her head. "Ethan is going to marry someone else. He has nothing to do with me anymore. My husband is Nathan. He was, and he will always be, boss. Isn't it a bit late for you to say that?" Olivia's voice suddenly became hoarse. Her eyes were red. He said, "The signature on the divorce agreement, I've had it confirmed. It was indeed your signature. Nathan is no longer your husband. It's one thing if he doesn't know about your plans, but now that he does, why do you want to bother him, even if Nathan is willing to forgive you and come back to this life of fighting with you? Can you live with yourself?" Isabella felt her heart fill with anger. She never considered my feelings. But now these words came from her brother's mouth. Isabella didn't say anything. She slowly remembered the first time we met. I held a bouquet of flowers. And I told her, I like a quiet life, 3 meals a day, ordinary days, a few kittens, a house with a view of the sea watching the sun set. But since we've been together, I haven't had a single day like that. And Ethan, what are you going to do if Nathan is willing to come back? How are you going to make him face Ethan? You want me to keep quiet too, get rid of me, and tell Nathan? He's been Mrs. Nathan for so many years. You haven't treated him badly, have I?" Isabella suddenly stood up, staring at Olivia. After a long while she said, "Go find him. Everyone's gone." The house suddenly became very quiet. Isabella was scared. She kept drinking, bottle after bottle, but she just felt a little dizzy. But she immediately sobered up. She kept checking her phone. The messages that once bored her were now exceptionally precious. For several days, Isabella only answered calls related to me. She even hung up on Ethan's calls. At that moment, the phone suddenly rang. Isabella suddenly got up from the bed and quickly rushed to my phone. As soon as she got the phone, she saw a message from Ethan. "Nathan, I underestimated you. You even used the disappearing trick. You had Isabella completely under your control. But now that you've left, hide well. If you show up again, don't blame me for being unkind." Above the thank you message I sent Ethan, there were 2 more messages with a warning and a provoking tone. The time I sent thank you coincided with the day I left. Isabella immediately sensed something was wrong and hurriedly went to find Ethan. As soon as Ethan saw her, he threw himself at her weakly. But Isabella took a cold step back and asked directly, "What did you say to Nathan? Why did Nathan thank you?" Ethan was taken aback by Isabella's cold attitude, but he quickly came back to his senses and hurriedly shook his head. "What could I say to Nathan? You don't think he left because of me, do you?" Isabella looked at him disappointedly. She took out her phone. The screen displayed a provocative text message from Ethan. Meanwhile, Isabella's man had snatched Ethan's phone. "Isabella, read on it. I witnessed him asking me to a hotel. I also saw how he tricked Isabella into signing it. He warned me to make me disappear forever." The clues to all this finally had an answer. Isabella looked at him with eyes that for the first time revealed murderous intent. "No, Isabella, you married him. Wasn't it to protect me? You should love me, not a substitute, a shield." Ethan was scared and backed away. He wanted to arouse Isabella's feelings. Isabella suddenly took a step forward and held Ethan's back of the head. The two leaned close to each other. They could feel each other's breath, but only fear, no other feeling. "You're right. I'll treat you well from now on," Isabella said hoarsely. Ignoring Ethan's cries, she turned and walked away. Everyone knew Isabella only had eyes for Ethan. I was just an innocent bystander. That day, Ethan's fiancée Square Copyright E's family called off the engagement. Those who had originally targeted Isabella turned their attention to Ethan instead. What I had been through were repeated in him. Half a month later, I learned of Ethan's death. While watching the ducklings waddle and learn to walk, a regular customer told me the news. He quietly looked at the flowers and sighed at the vicissitudes of life. I sighed along with him. The names Ethan and Isabella sounded as if they came from a distant past. Nathan. I heard a voice and turned around. My face immediately turned cold. Isabella rushed in. I was just about to close the shop. Then her hand slipped in. Her fingers turned blue instantly. She clenched her teeth. Even though she was sweating from the pain, she refused to back down. "Let me talk to you." "Okay." Isabella's voice was almost pleading. The customers around us all turned to look. I had no choice. I had to open the door and let her in. I calmed her down first. Then I made a cup of coffee and brought it to her. At that moment, I had a chance to take a good look at her. In just 1 month, she looked like she had aged 10 years. Her hair was beginning to turn gray. Her dark circles under her eyes were very obvious. It was clear that she had not been doing well. I didn't understand. She loved Ethan so much. I had already withdrawn. Why was she still not doing well? "Nathan, you really no longer love me." Tears welled up in her eyes and asked. I looked at her, at a loss for words. I didn't know how to respond. Maybe it wasn't her that I really liked, but the Isabella who played the part of someone who loved Nathan. I stayed by her side and did all those things. Actually, for the Isabella who loved me. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Isabella seemed to be very disappointed. She said, "Nathan, if I never let you get hurt again in the future, if I really fall in love with you, would you still want to go back with me?" She looked at me expectantly. I leaned back unconsciously, a little further away from her. "Are you going to replace me with another innocent person and eventually let him suffer like I did before, or like Ethan is suffering now, and die tragically?" Isabella's eyes widened. She looked at me in disbelief. It seemed that my words had deeply hurt her. She asked, "In your eyes, is that what I am?" I didn't say anything. What else could I say? Did she think she was some kind of extraordinary person? She always said she was deeply in love, but she inflicted all her pain on others. When she loved, she was willing to give everything. She was even willing to sacrifice herself. But once the love was gone, she would turn her back without mercy. Isabella suddenly looked away from me. We sat in silence until the sun had completely set. When the last reddish hue in the sky disappeared, Isabella let out a deep sigh. "Nathan, I've watched the sunset with you." I looked at her in surprise. I didn't think she'd remembered my old wish. I wished she'd watched the sunset with me. Unfortunately, back then, Isabella was willing to give me anything. She just wouldn't give me time. Now, this companionship has finally come. I no longer want to feel anything. I just feel a pain in my back. Isabella looked away from me again. When she reached the shop front, she suddenly turned around and looked at me. "Nathan, I'm willing to give up everything, both status and wealth. I just want to live incognito. I'll go anywhere with you. Watch the sun rise and set together. Plant flowers and raise chickens. Make simple meals together. Are you willing?" She looked at me nervously. Her hands trembled slightly, just as they had when I had just said those words. This time, it was my turn to refuse. "I have already done it. Isabella can never get back what she has lost. You go after your ideals. I have lived my ordinary life. That was the case in the past. It is the case now, and it will be the case in the future. Just like Nathan, who once loved Isabella dearly, now he can never return." Isabella once again looked away from me. This time she left in a hurry. She even left before I could finish speaking. In the days that followed, but I never answered. Later, she wrote to me in various ways. Often some ignorant children would read the letters to me. She said she had actually fallen in love with me a long time ago. She just loved me too deeply and didn't realize it herself. She also said if she couldn't see me for a day, she couldn't even sleep. I had long since become a part of her life, deep in her bones, everywhere. I got tired of hearing it. At first I asked my child to call her back, to tell her to leave me alone, that it was over between us. Then I simply moved. I got on a plane again, a little annoyed. I moved to the opposite side of town from Isabella. I thought that would give me some peace. But a year later, I went to see Isabella anyway at her funeral. Someone said, I never thought Isabella would go so young. Who could have predicted it? A year ago, Isabella's personality suddenly changed. She started taking revenge on everyone. I heard she did it for her boyfriend, Ethan. Everyone was amazed at her deep love for Ethan, but I knew better. The end of her life was near my villa. Nathan. I turned around and saw Olivia not far away. She waved at me. When we entered the house, her eyes were red, and handed me a suitcase. That night, the boss had wanted to pay you a visit, but someone was following him. So, I gently pursed my lips and said, "Please accept my condolences." Then, the other person continued, "Nathan, the boss knows she owes you an apology. These are her belongings, all her assets, which you will now inherit before she died. She asked me to pass on a message to you. She implored you. She hoped you wouldn't hate her after saying this." Olivia was already in tears. That day after Isabella's funeral, I never responded to Olivia. I could not forgive her, because she ruined my youth. All the property Isabella left me, I donated it all. Not a single penny was kept. I applied for my doctorate again. Life has ushered in a brand new beginning.